Up next, I gotta show you guys a truly wild clip from MSNBC where a Democratic congresswoman floats a pretty crazy conspiracy theory. So y'all probably remember Jasmine Crockett, the Democrat from Texas, who has gone viral a bunch of times. I've discussed her on this show because she is very hostile towards her colleagues at times, to say the least. She's the one who had that brouhaha with Nancy Mace, where Nancy Mace actually went even further and tried to tell her to catch her outside or something.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Well, Congresswoman Crockett was on MSNBC and floated a new conspiracy theory about Trump I actually hadn't heard before. Take a listen.
It is really awful. And I know right now people are asking whether or not their IRS refund checks are going to be affected. We don't know if this is more DEI. Are you going to say if it's somebody that's a person of color, then for some reason, whatever they paid in to the federal government, they're not allowed to get it back? Like, we don't know, but there is no reason for any political appointee, if you can even call him that, to have this kind of access. There's none.
So the context for this clip was kind of the criticism and panic over Elon Musk's Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, setting up and apparently getting access to tons of government systems and people's data, which, you know, we can talk about that. Maybe there are some concerns with that. And I do actually think some of the stuff they're doing is legally dubious. I mean, whether they can really shut down an entire agency, USAID, without Congress passing a law, I'm kind of skeptical of that. But regardless, what is Congresswoman Crockett talking about exactly? She just suggested, first off, I struggle to even understand, like, she is not particularly eloquent, to say the very least, but I struggle to understand that word salad she just hit us with. But she actually just suggested that the government under Trump and Elon is going to withhold Black people's tax refunds. Ma'am, what? And who are these people who you say are, everyone's talking about this and everyone's worried about this? I don't know anybody talking about that, except maybe the deepest corners of woke TikTok, where they're constantly saying things that aren't true and spreading baseless panic, which apparently they also do with some regularity on networks like MSNBC. But that's not a thing. Nobody wants to do that. Trump doesn't want to do that. Elon doesn't want to do that. If anything, it's kind of hilarious to me to hear Democrats like Jasmine Crockett fighting apparently for people to get tax refunds. Like, y'all are the ones constantly trying to take more of our money. And whether you agree with him on other things or not, Trump cut our taxes last time he was president. And now you're acting like he wants to deny people their tax money getting refunded. No, he doesn't. Not Black people, not white people. If anything, he wants to do more tax cuts. In terms of income tax, at least. I mean, we can talk about the tariffs. That's a whole nother topic. But just to hear people floating these things out, like, wildly with no real basis, and just, that's like normal. That's the tone and the temperature of our discourse, that people just say random crap like this all the time. And not just like some woke person on TikTok, sitting members of Congress just go on television and say crazy things with no basis in reality. Heck, I mean, Trump does that too, but they're supposed to be different, right? They're supposed to be better, but they kind of engage in many of the things they constantly criticize him for. It's just sounds different, takes different shapes, takes different forms. Sometimes it's more polished, and they do it on MSNBC instead of on Truth Social. There was another part of her MSNBC interview that I found equally alarmist and concerning.
Not our democracy. Well, he did say he'd be a dictator on day one. Oh, Democrats, you know, it's just Trump. He just talks. Well, let me tell you something. He is doing more than talking. We talked about Project 2025. We talked about the consolidation of power. We talked about how he wanted to be a king. We talked about, in a democratic republic, that is not what it is. We have some sort of checks and balances, and he is doing everything that he can to get rid of those checks and balances. The DOJ and the people that he's going after were simply doing their jobs. The problem is that Americans thought that it was okay to take a full-fledged criminal and make him the president of the United States, and then they want to act aghast when he does criminal things. Let me tell you, we have a thug in charge of the United States, and if we don't wake up, we may not have a United States, because right now he has only been successful in being a divider in chief.
Calm down. Jasmine, we are going to have a United States, and the country is not going to crack up just because of a couple of years of chaos. This kind of thing is always incredibly historically short-sighted. The country's actually been through much worse and much more tumultuous times than this and made it out through the other end. So I really find that kind of alarmist doomsday rhetoric disappointing and concerning, because a lot of people buy it and believe it and genuinely do fall for it. And then they end up all worked up and hating their neighbors and spewing toxicity on social media because they look to people like this for thought leadership and they lead them astray. There's also some points in there I want to address, like Trump being a criminal is only a point because they prosecuted him over like bookkeeping offenses related to a payment he made to Stormy Daniels. It's not like he did a crime that's even a crime. First of all, a lot of legal experts think the theory used to convict him was wildly distorted and twisted. And regardless, it's not something that really bothers most people. It's not a serious criminal offense. And so to cast that aspersion around, especially when y'all are supposed to be the criminal justice reform people, the people who think that, committing a crime, going to jail, whatever, shouldn't be the end of your life. And I'm actually pretty sympathetic to that view, that we need to reintegrate people and welcome them back into society if they've done their time. Then acting like he's a criminal because of some bookkeeping offense that they stretched into all these felonies and got in this wildly partisan prosecutor, it just doesn't hit the way you think it hits. And he hasn't done anything criminal as president. He's certainly done some things that you could argue are unconstitutional overreach, and you can challenge them in court, and maybe the Supreme Court would rule that they are, but he hasn't committed a criminal act. She didn't name one, and I'm not even sure what she could be referring to. I just thought this segment and this interview with this congresswoman really summed up everything that's wrong with partisan media and with hyperbolic partisan commentators. We're supposed to be serving their constituents in Congress, but spend their time pandering to the extreme base instead. But what did you think? What do you think of Jasmine Crockett more broadly? Let me know in the comments.